My friend, Dr. Michael Waller, is a senior analyst for strategy at the Center for Security Policy. And I work there as a senior fellow. He's also the president of Georgetown Research, which is a political risk and private intelligence company. He's worked for the CIA in Central America. He's an expert on the collapse of the Soviet Union. He's taught history and methods at America's premier intelligence universities. He knows the ins and outs and the history of the modern intelligence community. And he's sane, and he's a patriotic American. These are rare qualities in Washington, D.C. these days. Mike is the author of a new and important book titled Big Intel. The book explains how the CIA and FBI went from Cold War heroes to deep state villains. So, Mike, welcome back to the Economic War Room.
It's great to be back with you, Kevin.
I love your book. It's an important book. It really hits the heart of Americans who wonder, why is it that I now fear the CIA and the FBI and I never did before? Tell me, what compelled you to write it?
That same fear, that same concern, to see what happened to it to become not just liberal, but woke, was shocking, because they don't believe in America anymore. They believe in globalism and cultural shifts. They call themselves agents of change to change American culture.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not just the CIA. You've got the FBI, too. And, one of my nightmare horror stories is imagining that people come knocking at my door because I protected my child at a pro-life rally from somebody that wanted to accost her. So I pushed him out of the way. And next thing I know, guns are drawn. And that really happened, didn't it?
These types of things happen to people all over the place, where you have the FBI dropping child trafficking cases to go bust people for First Amendment crimes, as if there was ever such a thing before as a First Amendment crime. But they call it First Amendment activity, is what they call it, and then you've committed a misdemeanor in the course of pursuing First Amendment activity. So it's just really creepy what has happened to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, as with the CIA. And what we see with the wokeness in the military is going on with our whole intelligence community.
Yeah, and the whole notion of I wouldn't mind them prosecuting First Amendment crime if someone was keeping me from my free speech rights or my free exercise of religion rights. That's not what they're talking about here at all.
No, and it's a doctrine. It's not simply a different point of view. It's an ideological doctrine that's being imposed from the top. It started really under the Bush 43 administration during the global war on terror, when, well, friends of yours and mine, we were prevented from using the word jihadist to refer to jihadist in the courses that we were doing for the FBI and elsewhere, because it would offend the jihadists. And so you had this, it's okay to drop iron on them and blow them up. It's not okay to offend them. And so we had this weirdness happening. This is in the early 2000s. But when Bush centralized the intelligence community, which had been divided up so it could never become too powerful, he centralized it in the name of efficiency to make sure that no Americans were killed by terrorists, which was a noble goal, but it wasn't thought through. So when Obama came in, his ideological people then turned it into a political machine.
Yeah.
And an ideological machine of diversity, equity, inclusion, and every color of the rainbow and more than you care to imagine.
Well, let's start with the history, because your book does a good job. Why were the CIA and FBI formed, and how did we get from where we looked at the G-man as somebody that we looked up to, admired, respected, wanted to be, to someone we feared coming knocking at our door just because we used the wrong pronouns?
Yeah. Well, the FBI was founded during the New Deal. It was a big New Deal program. You had more federal laws, centralization of government. Now you need more federal law enforcement and investigations. But its predecessor was the Bureau of Investigation, founded before World War I, to go after interstate crime and so forth. But it didn't really do much until a young man named J. Edgar Hoover, who during World War I had been headed up the radical division of the Justice Department. His job was to hunt down foreign communists and anarchists and radical socialists who had come to America in the big waves of immigration to overthrow our government. So it was Hoover's job to identify them, round them up, and deport them back to Russia. And he did a great job. Made a lot of mistakes, but he did a great job. And his goal was to defend the United States against communism, Marxism, anarchism and everything else. And so when he became director of the full Federal Bureau of Investigation, he took that mentality with him, meaning subversion was to overthrow our constitutional principles and our Judeo-Christian heritage. Well, no other FBI director has ever spoken like that before. And then the FBI gradually devolved into what it is today, where the subversives are people like you and me.